From humble tents and horses to world domination, here's how the Mongols became the largest contiguous empire in history. For context, the Mongolian Empire reigned from 1206 to 1368 and started in Central Asia, around where modern-day Mongolia is. Nowadays, lots of Mongolians have moved past their nomadic roots, opting instead for cities, like Mongolia's capital, Ulaanbaatar, which is on average the coldest capital city in the world. But a strong sense of cultural pride for their nomadic traditions still remains today, and in fact is actually heavily relied upon, like specifically with the practice of grazing livestock, which contributes a significant amount to Mongolia's economy. Before the Mongolian Empire, many other nomadic tribes have also ruled the Central Asian steppe. And if you're wondering what the steppe is, it's basically a 5,000-mile belt of grasslands which runs through Eurasia. Some historians say the Mongolians' closest ancestors are the Xiongnu, a tribal confederation that ruled for about 300 years, from around 209 BC to 100 CE, although it's hard to pin a direct ancient ancestor of the Mongolian Empire, since many of the region's people lived a nomadic lifestyle, which meant constant movement. But while for a long time nomadic nations rose and fell, staying unified always seemed to be a constant issue. And this was a problem the Mongolian Empire also faced as well. In an attempt to prevent tribal unification, the neighboring Chinese Jin dynasty used a divide and rule strategy. So basically, they pushed conflict between the five major tribes, Karets, Kamig Mongol, Naiman, Merjid, Tatar, to keep them distracted from the growing Jin dynasty. But during this chaos, in 1162, Temujin was born, and his rise to power was no easy path. When he was just 9, Temujin's father was poisoned by a rival clan, leaving his family vulnerable. Then shortly after, his family was exiled from their tribe, which left Temujin's mother to take care of her 7 children alone. But this would not stop Temujin, who foraged and hunted for food to survive. And as time went on, he grew stronger, surviving multiple kidnappings, and eventually growing into a battle-tested warrior. These experiences brought Temujin resilience, as well as many allies, which he used to unify the Mongol clans against their enemies. But his first foes were not as far as you'd think. Other rightful heirs in the Mongol clans, like Temujin's uncles, still saw him as a usurper. So Temujin, with the help of his loyal followers, beat those against him into submission, unifying the nomad people once and for all. And after exterminating his competition, in 1206, Temujin was declared ruler of all Mongols. This was following a tribal council, which consisted of the heads of all major clans, making a majority decision to place Temujin as their leader. And with his position now being formally acknowledged, Temujin officially began his rule. However, instead of taking a traditional Mongolian title like Gur Khan or Tayan Khan, which pretty much means supreme ruler, Temujin was instead declared, as you probably might recognize, Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler. And while infighting had held back the Mongols for years, new unification was luckily paired with a mild winter in the usually frigid steppe of northern Mongolia. What this meant was better conditions for raising cattle, leading to a massive increase in war horses and food production. And a well-supplied Mongolian horde is one to be feared. First, the Mongolian Empire pushed into a northwestern Chinese border state, the Tangut Kingdom of Xizia. But after just a few years, they gave in, and the king of Xizia declared allegiance to the Mongolian Empire. Campaigns like this followed across the empire's southeastern border, and after Muslim men loyal to Genghis were killed out west, the Mongol effort shifted. It started with cities north of modern-day Iran, then at one point in every direction. People were sacked, then captured by Mongol forces in retribution. Eventually, the Mongolian army even pushed through the Caucasus, penetrating into southern Russia and continuing north, almost reaching up near modern Finland. They pretty much expanded out in every direction, conquering anyone who defied their rule. And a large part of this unrelenting conquest was made possible due to the Mongol warrior culture, which conscripted men into the army up to 60 years old. These Mongol fighters are heavily remembered for their connection to horses and horse-mounted combat, with some soldiers bringing up to 5 backup horses for quick swaps when needed. Mongol warriors were also known to wear lighter armor compared to those they faced, but this added an advantage in mobility and became a large part of their famous battle strategies. Although it wasn't just their ways of war that differed, the Mongols also hunted in a distinct way as well. Instead of sending out small parties, they lined up a massive group of warriors, encircled their herd of prey, and collapsed on an entire region with the goal of killing every animal between them. Like their hunting, nomadic Mongols' methods of travel was often just as efficient. In the winter, frozen rivers became horse highways, connecting cities which for most cultures were beyond reach during the cold seasons. But what really set Genghis Khan and the Mongols apart was their approach to war. It's said that Genghis often met with religious leaders of other cultures to gain a deeper understanding and control of those he battled against. When Genghis defeated an enemy, he studied everything about them, and even recruited their military specialists as well. For example, the use of Chinese engineers who aided in the construction of siege weapons for when the Mongols needed to invade walled cities, which was not typically their strength. Genghis also sometimes offered prisoners of war of choice, between death or joining his army. However, when the Mongols raided, looting was not a choice to be made by soldiers. Instead, it was only allowed if approved by Genghis. Then, when looting did happen, the spoils were shared among all warriors, instead of just being sent to aristocrats, which was typical at the time. And by not giving out spoils of war to the empire's aristocrats, aka Genghis' own family, he pissed them off pretty bad. But that wasn't the only thing they disliked. Genghis also awarded high military positions based on merit and those loyal to him, which meant members of low-ranking families were sometimes placed as leaders above his own clan. This is again atypical for the times, where positions of power were usually just assigned to direct family members. But honestly, this probably played a huge role in the Mongolian Empire's success, since by rejecting nepotism, those Those who actually deserved roles based on experience got them. And another big part of the changes Genghis made was a new code of laws for the young, rapidly growing empire. This code forbade the selling of women, theft, fighting among the Mongols, and the hunting of animals during the breeding season. Genghis also decreed religious freedom, supported domestic and international trade, exempted the poor and the clergy from taxation, and pushed literacy reform throughout the empire. But while a lot of these laws make sense, even in our modern world, some of them stood out for worse reasons. Like for example, if one horseman didn't pick up the fallen item from a horseman in front of him, he could be punished to death. You might be thinking, that seems a bit harsh. Well, so was the punishment for pretty much everything, which planted seeds of resentment in those Genghis subjected. Resistance to Mongol rule was met with collective punishment, which meant even if only a few citizens acted disobedient, entire cities were burned and their people were slaughtered. However, it wasn't always about obedience. Sometimes, even when a city surrendered, if they didn't have enough provisions to offer, they still may be wiped out regardless. Before his death, Genghis divided the empire under joint rule among his sons into 4 khanates, including Jochi's Khanate of the Golden Horde, Chagtai's Khanate, Ogadai's Khanate of the Great Khan, also known as the Yuan dynasty, and later on, Tuli's Khanate. But with Genghis' death came succession, and choosing one Khan to rule them all was no easy task. The major clans battled for years, resulting in the rise, fall, and lots of bloodshed for many successors. While the Mongols wasted their focus on each other, discontentment grew throughout the empire, bred especially by earlier mentioned brutal punishments. And as years went by, small regions regained independence, and the once dominant Mongol horde collapsed in on itself. During the Mongolian Empire's rise, they killed an estimated 30 to 80 million people in quest for world domination. Apparently, during 50 years of Mongol rule, China's population was halved. Before they were invaded, China's census showed about 120 million people. After, about only 60. But to be fair, it is debated if this is fully due to the Mongols or if poor Chinese administration at the time counted wrong. But regardless, it's pretty crazy. Oh, and some also blame the bubonic plague. And speaking of the plague, many believe that it may have spread on the trade lines which connected much of the Mongol continent. Another theory is that during a Mongol siege, their army was withering with disease. And so at one point, in a desperate move, they launched their infected bodies of the dead over the walls. And when traders of the city fled back to southern Europe, they may have taken the plague with them, which technically could add a lot more bodies to the Mongol count. So in the end, it looks like the Mongols' brutality, which got them their empire, its land, also was the same thing that led to their collapse. That paired with a bunch of infighting, of course, which seems to spell the end of a lot of empires. I hope you enjoyed, like, and subscribe for more.